What is poppin', fight fans? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and welcome to the Mystic Hour on the MMA Island. I'm your host, Darnell Giovanni, aka Mr. Black. I said Mr. Black, Mystic Black. I got my guy over here, Nick Marcus in the house. What up, Nick?
You ain't lying. Actually, man, I feel like I'm on an island with that introduction song. MMA
That's
Island,
right.
to be specific.
MMA Island, to be specific. I thought I would rock a little pink, and I like your blue color over there. I think we kind of did something subconsciously. Didn't even know, but you know what? It works out to perfection. But anyways, this past weekend we had a really good fight card. Some hard losses, really big wins. Woo! That was a good card on ESPN. We had Alistair Overeem take on Alex Volkov. My lord, what a fight that was. Alistair Overeem, this is probably the worst he's looked in his past five fights. Volkov ended up TKOing him, or KO, whatever you want to call it, in the second round. Overeem was pretty much just playing defense throughout the whole entire fight, the whole 2 rounds that it lasted. Volkov looked very, very good, very accurate. I think he landed 60% of his strikes, and he didn't even throw that many strikes. I think he threw about 56 to 60 strikes, nothing too crazy, but he looked really good. That enters him into the top 5 of that fray. Nick, what did you get from Volkov's performance?
I mean, I think we got he wasn't kidding as far as how great he looked physically wise. He looked a little heavy in his last fights, but he really slimmed down for this one, which is a big ask because he's a big guy. But he was agile. He knew how to approach it. I mean, to make Alistair Overeem look inexperienced like he did this past fight is a really tall order. So I think he's really making a name for himself as far as this division. He's definitely you beat somebody like Overeem, which is sad because you don't want to see Overeem this late in his career go down like that. But especially for title hopes, but we'll get into that later. But Volkov, he just goes to show that, look, I'm here. I'm here to match up with anybody, and I'm here for the throne.
Yeah, so speaking of that, you think Alistair Overeem is out of the title talks now? He said this was his last run, his final run of going to the title. He lost to somebody that was in the top 6, still high up in the heavyweight rankings. Is this Alistair Overeem's last chance? Was that his last chance?
I think it was his last chance. I don't think he gets another chance after this because, one, he was dominated. He didn't even get to go all 5 rounds. I mean, they only went 2 of the 5 rounds. And then on top of that, you got people, who's in front of him, which is Derek Lewis, Jairzinho, Curtis Blades, Francis Ngannou, of course, Stipe. So I just don't see it really happening anymore. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's a bad look on him that he lost to Volkov, especially how great Volkov looked and how well he fought. But that was definitely the last. He missed the train for his title shot opportunity.
Now, if you're the UFC, you got Alistair Overeem, 41, 42 years old now. He's a guy who's been in the game for a long time. He's an expensive guy. If you look at the most highest ranking heavyweights or people that fought in the UFC, Alistair Overeem has earned some of the most money in UFC history. He's on the older side. What are you doing if you're the UFC? Are you cutting him, or are you giving him another couple fights?
I think you give him another couple fights because even though he's expensive, he brings viewers. So you got some of these guys that have been around for a long time, they're not bringing as many viewers as they used to, but I don't think Alistair falls under that category. I think anybody, especially people like us, right? You see Overeem on a card, you're going to tune in for that just because of him. It doesn't matter necessarily who else is on that card. And not only that, but best believe that if Overeem is on the card, it's going to be a good one, right? So I don't think that they should get rid of him. I know he's expensive, but like I said, he brings viewers and that makes money for them. So I think it'd be kind of foolish. Although, like I said, the way that UFC, or like I've said in previous episodes, the way that UFC is moving, they're really, slashing heads over there and really trying to cut on any dead weight, which I don't think he is, but they might believe he is.
I think Overeem's got to be very careful here because they can set him up to be now a gatekeeper for that heavyweight division. He lost a really big fight that he needed a win if he wanted a title shot. Now the UFC is going to look to book him against a lot of younger competition. Also risky on the UFC side because Alistair Overeem, as bad as he lost on Saturday, he's still a very top competitor, great striker, great grappler. He's good in a lot of places, so it can kind of hold down upcoming contenders. So it's risky on their part as well. I think if I'm the UFC, we're renegotiating that contract, maybe not paying him $800,000 every single fight, maybe something lower than that, and giving him to some contenders that are coming up and want to make a name for themselves. But it's up to Alistair Overeem if he wants to continue to take damage like that, because he's been knocked out in his career before. He has over 100 combat matches in his career, from kickboxing to MMA. If I'm Alistair Overeem, no titles ahead of me. I've done a lot of my career. I've made plenty of money. I'd just go on maybe to commentate. There's a lot of other things that he can do. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe coach. I don't know if Alistair Overeem is too much of a coach. He's at a great team in Team Elevation, yes, but it's going to be a very rough. He needs to take his time, think about it. But he's a guy who's made multiple comebacks in his career, so he's got a lot to think about. But in the co-main event, I'm just gonna show the image that I don't even want to look. I'm not looking right now. I am not looking at this image. It's hard. Let me know when it's gone. Let me know when it's gone.
It's gone.
If you know me, I don't brag too much about people that I love, because I try to be unbiased as possible. But when it comes to Frankie Edgar, Lord, I am sorry. This guy, I can never see him go out the way that he did. Corey Sandhagen knocked out Frankie Edgar within 28 seconds of the first round in a bantamweight competition to basically who's going to be the number one contender after Sterling and Peter Yan fight. Maybe. We'll see, because we have other names like TJ Dillashaw in that fray as well. But was that fray? No, let's start with Corey. Was that Corey Sandhagen's most impressive performance of his career?
I don't know, he's had quite a few, and for the little time that he has, but I think it's just I don't want to say it's the most impressive, but perhaps just another impressive win, another convincing win to basically further solidify his belief that he should be the top guy. Besides Aljamain Sterling, he thinks that he belongs in that title fight with him, right? I mean, you and I, we discussed before Peter Yan even had that title fight with Jose Aldo, that Corey Sandhagen and Aljamain should have ran it back and fought for that title, for that vacant title that Henry Cejudo had left behind. So I think he's just further proving his point. I think people need to stop casting doubt over him. And then he even had some comments of his own in regards to TJ Dillashaw. But outside of TJ Dillashaw, I don't see anybody really that's in that division that's going to be better than him outside of Aljamain Sterling. And obviously to give respect to Peter Yan, but I think that even if Corey Sandhagen went against Peter Yan, I think that he could beat him easily too.
That, in my opinion, was Corey Sandhagen's best performance of his career for sure. I don't see how you can top that. Even winning a title might not even top what he did to Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar is a guy that does not get knocked out. He's been knocked out. No.
This is
he's
true.
Been TKO, He's been TKO'd before by Brian Ortega, TKO'd him, and so did the Korean Zombie, but completely knocked out to where he was out for about 2 minutes, which made me so nervous just seeing him on the floor that way. And that it hit him pretty pinpoint, because it didn't hit him. Usually points that knock you out is behind the ear, behind the head. This was on the chin, so it must have rocked his head.
On the button.
Right on the button. That must have rocked him so bad. It put him out for about 2 minutes. Scary to see, but very impressive on Corey Sandhagen's front to definitely put him as the number one contender in that UFC bantamweight division. I know there's the TJ Dillashaw effect when he comes back, because he's now eligible to fight. He still has to pass a couple tests. We don't know what's in his system still, but I don't think it's very fair for TJ Dillashaw to just come off a suspension and automatically get put in a title fight. Maybe a title contender fight, but not a title fight. Should Corey Sandhagen fight TJ Dillashaw? I don't think so. Corey Sandhagen should be the guy who's next for the title shot. He's earned it. He's fought the past couple years pretty fast, fighting people back to back. If you beat Marlon Moraes and Frankie Edgar back to back and knock them out, to me, that is a title shot. Nick, are you giving TJ Dillashaw a contender fight, or are you just letting him get back into the top 5 of that bantamweight division since he just came off a suspension?
I mean, if I had to choose between the two, I think the latter is what I would go with. Like you gotta, like you said, this isn't a hiatus I guess like you could say McGregor had, where he tested his talents elsewhere and now he's coming back. This is a hiatus he had because of a suspension, and so I think that he needs to, in a way, earn his way. I mean, we all know how talented he is and what he can do, but I think he has to, in a way, win the division back, win the fans back, win the promotion back. And so you can't just throw him out there. As great as he is, you can't just throw him out there right to the top. You definitely have to let him prove that, look, I can do this again, and I can do this again without any, so to speak, help.
What I didn't understand after this fight, Tuesday, the rankings come out, and Frankie Edgar went from number 3 to number 7. That's a little crazy. I don't understand how you fall 4 spots after losing to somebody who was ranked right before you. Corey Sandhagen was ranked, no, excuse me. Corey Sandhagen was ranked number 2, I believe. And then Frankie Edgar was ranked number 3.
He didn't move.
And then, he didn't. No, Corey Sandhagen is now number 1 in the bantamweight. No, he's not. He's number 2. You're right. He didn't move.
He's behind Aljamain. Right,
he's behind Aljamain, excuse me. But Frankie Edgar drops to number 7. I think that's a little ridiculous. I either think he should have maybe lost 1 spot or stayed in the same exact place. That's a little ridiculous on a UFC ranking stage, but there's been a lot of confusion with that. But Frankie shouldn't drop that much. Now, you're Frankie Edgar. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying I think it's because probably they're considering his age and how long he's been fighting and everything. But it is weird, like Cody Garbrandt, maybe Rob Font. I get it. He hasn't been around as much and he's up and coming. Marlon Moraes, I mean, he just finished getting knocked out by Corey Sandhagen too. So I don't see, was his knockout that much or less worse than his for him to fall behind him. It is kind of a steep drop. One that I don't think necessarily.
What are we basing that on? We're basing rankings now on the way you're knocked out. That's crazy because I know a lot of guys who should be ranked very low from the way they've got knocked out before. But if you have a win against somebody who was ranked in the top 5, which Pedro Munoz was, I think you should stay within that top 5. It's very interesting to see now what the UFC is going to do with Frankie Edgar. He's definitely on the older side of his career, but he didn't look bad against Pedro Munoz. He just looked very rough against an upcoming guy like Corey Sandhagen. Nick, if you're Frankie Edgar, are you taking an extended amount of time off, or you're trying to come back a little bit faster because the division can leave him?
I think he has to come back, as sad as it is, especially after getting knocked out like that. You have to try to get back as soon as possible, because if not, he's going to become irrelevant. Maybe not to fans like us, but to the UFC. And if you're not bringing in viewers, if you're not, if you don't have it like you used to, and we all know that Frankie Edgar, I think you even have him as your top fighter of all time with reason. Somebody like that, even then, they're not going to show him the respect that I would say he deserves. He definitely has to get back there as soon as possible.
Agreed. And in that main card on Saturday, we had a fight that I think both me and you predicted that would probably be fight of the night, and it ended up being fight of the night. Beneil Dariush and Diego Ferreira had such a war back and forth. Could have gone either way, but I definitely saw where they give it to Beneil because he was dominant from the top. And I was very shocked to see Diego Ferreira suffer from the bottom. Usually he's a guy that is very good at jiu-jitsu, top or bottom, doesn't matter. He can dominate in that fashion, but Beneil was just too strong on the top. Now Beneil enters the top 10 of the UFC rankings now. He is now ranked number 9, I believe. He's number 9 now. So Beneil being in the top 10, does he deserve somebody in the top 8? Did he just win the Rafael dos Anjos sweepstakes? Is he going to fight Paul Felder? So many guys up there. Who are you putting Beneil against after this performance?
I mean, he's been around since, I believe, 2014. And I think that now that he's actually propelled to the top 10, Paul Felder's right below him at number 10, right? So, yeah, you can go ahead and take that fight, but I don't think that's going to further propel you to where you want to be, right? Especially with, like we keep on saying, is most likely a vacancy at the title of that weight division. So I'd like to see him go against two people that come to mind. Yeah, Rafael dos Anjos, I think that would be a good fight, like you said, especially the fact that he's a gatekeeper or, probably the gatekeeper of that division. But I like to see him go against somebody like Dan Hooker or Tony Ferguson, big names that have just come off losses. And in that way, you really get to see where these fighters are really at currently, right? Obviously, Ferguson has had 2 really bad losses. recently. Dan Hooker. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe even Michael Chandler. Maybe. Well, actually, no. Michael Chandler, I think
No.
would be it would be kind of destructive. So yeah, definitely warm him up more with. I would say a Tony Ferguson because it's a big enough name that's going to draw attention. But it's somebody that I feel at his career at this point with the defeats that he's had, he could probably beat Tony Ferguson. And then Dan Hooker would probably bounce back. But this would be a good guy to try to bounce back against, right? You don't want to go against those top 6 guys and then lose again and really lose your opportunity of a title shot. So I think either Dan Hooker or Tony Ferguson for me.
Yeah, but Neil was actually supposed to fight Charles Oliveira last year, and unfortunately that fight got scrapped because of COVID issues. So he should have had Charles Oliveira, who's now in the top 3 of the UFC lightweight division. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that Beneil was on a 6 or 7 fight win streak right now. And any guy that he's going to fight in between that 7 or 5 range, even putting Conor McGregor, have come off of losses, either 1 or 2, even 3 losses that are ranked ahead of him. So he's going to have to fight somebody coming off a loss, which is okay because these guys are very high level performers, especially in that fray of fighters. But just like you said, the Dan Hooker matchup would be wonderful. That'd be a war for sure. But Neil has definitely changed his style now because, as you can see, he's coming forward a lot. He's throwing up as many strikes, dynamic strikes. He's got that wonderful ground game, and he's not afraid to step in there in the pocket. And that's a big difference in his style now. And who doesn't want to watch that kind of a fight? You just come off a fight of the night performance. He had one of the best comebacks last year against Drakkar Klose. Now they're definitely going to put him maybe in a co-main event spot. Always going to be on a main card. So this is a really big step up for Beneil Dariush, and I think he'll get a pretty big step up here. But we go from a step up to a step down. We talked about this last week. Michael Johnson against Clay Guida. Pretty much loser leaves town at this point. You're the UFC. Michael Johnson has had his 4th loss in a row. Are you cutting Michael Johnson?
I think it's pretty much everything but set in stone that he's going to be cut. It's unfortunate. I mean, but like you just mentioned, we discussed this last week. Winner of this fight or loser of this fight was basically, going to go home. And like I said, UFC is not really playing any games. They're not going to try to hold on to somebody that is just going to have, loss after loss after loss, no matter what, limited success you had beforehand. And unfortunately, he didn't get the result last time, but because of that, and then the funny thing is that I'm trying to find the numbers here of that match because he actually I think was leading in total strikes and significant strikes. I guess takedowns ultimately was the one that decided the result.
Getting taken down.
That's the way exactly.
And that's
the way the cookie crumbles.
And they showed a clip of Kamaru Usman watching that fight, and he was just like, "Come on, Michael! You're so good in the gym with the defending of these takedowns," but he could not get off the cage. And it's very weird to talk about a guy like Michael Johnson because you look at the guys that he's beaten in his career: Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier. He has very big names.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
That he's knocked out and beaten. But then you look at his record, and he has a record of 19-17. I remember Kevin Lee saying, "Listen, you've fought all these fights, but barely won half of them." That's kind of where he is right now in his career, unfortunately. It sucks to see a guy like Michael Johnson who works so hard, has a really good coach in Henry Hooft, went to a different camp to get a different look, especially wrestling-wise, and then to have a performance like that. But the UFC has given him a lot of chances. Only 34. They've given a lot of chances from going to 145, back up to 155. I think Michael Johnson goes on an independent kind of streak and gets a couple wins. And maybe he can get back into UFC, or maybe he goes to the Bellator, right? Because Bellator has a pretty good lightweight division. It's not as good as the UFC, I don't think personally, but he has a name. He's beaten big names. He definitely can go in a competition like that. Or even if he wants to do the PFL thing to where they have the whole tournament style to where when you're going to fight. It's not the greatest competition, but it'll be something else for him to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's the only options he's going to have, right, is elsewhere. I don't think UFC is going to hold on to him. And like you said, for him to get his career back in track, he's going to perhaps have to go to one of these places that is not as challenging, not because of the promotion itself, but because they don't have as good of a division, a lightweight division like UFC does, or like you said, something that's going to be more predictable, that you can be, I suppose, more prepared going into your next fight. like PFL.
Yeah, well wishes to Michael Johnson and what he does next. Hopefully, he finds a home and whatever he's got to do to turn that luck around. Hopefully, that can happen. And congrats to Clay Guida on the win. Forgot to mention that as well. At the same time, he did win that fight. But this weekend, we had something else that a lot of people were looking forward to. Was the debut of Paige 12 Gauge Van Zandt in bare knuckle fighting championships, and she looked okay. She did not look bad. She definitely looked like an MMA fighter in a bare knuckle ring. I was about to say octagon. No, in a ring. She went against Britain Hart. Britain Hart definitely threw a lot of strikes, especially to the body. You can see the difference. Paige Van Zandt was kind of trying to hold on to her and maybe try to clinch up or take her down, kind of have that mindset. And when you're used to doing that for such a long period of time, it's very hard to stray away from that. But she did not look too bad. In that 4th and 5th round, she picked up the pace. It's like she was learning as she was going, as she was in the ring. Yeah. But she picked up the pace later on in that fight. And then I have to mention this. Britain Hart's post-fight speech was one of the greatest things I've ever heard. As ridiculous as it sounded, she made a name for herself. You beat somebody like Paige Van Zandt, you can't just say, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm humble. All good." No, you got to do something. And I am not upset for her for doing what she did, because now she's getting interviewed. She's going to have a bigger name in that organization now, or maybe to something else that she wants to do, or have any other career chance to do other things. But that post-fight, I wish I could play it right now, but YouTube will take it down immediately. But she basically said, "I am not a person. I am a feeling." I feel like this is going to be used by other people or maybe other fighters in the organization, something like that. But that was great. What do you think of Paige's performance on Friday, Nick?
I mean, she didn't do terrible, which she did a lot better than I thought she was going to. I think it's just a matter of getting accustomed to this new style. Like you said, this clinching on, it's habitual, right? Because that's where she came from. You could even see that when McGregor had fought Mayweather. He kept trying to tie him up and realizing, like, wait, I'm out of my element here. Like I need to, constantly remind myself that this is a whole new atmosphere that I need to adjust to. So I think it'll be good for her. I think that they'll want to try to set a rematch up and everything. And so she's not completely done. Although I find her to be very emotional too, like with her losses. So I hope that it's not too detrimental to her. I mean, this is a whole new setting for her, so she shouldn't be too ashamed. Hopefully she can, bounce back and give it another shot, and hopefully it works out next time. And then if not, I guess move on to the next thing. Obviously she has plenty of opportunities elsewhere to do other things. But yeah, I think she sticks around for a little bit. People are going to still tune in to see her fight, especially if it's a rematch now.
And she didn't take that too much damage as well. A lot of people were like, "Wow, she's going to get beat up. Her face is going to get eaten up by all these strikes." I think she has just a little small,
one black eye.
One black eye, which is normal. You can probably get from just sparring somebody. But now that she's getting used to this type of fighting style, I think she can do pretty well. I hope they run it back. That'd be a good rematch to see. It'd be good for Britain Hart too, as well. She gets another win over Paige Van Zandt. But I think the second fight would work out differently. They felt each other out. Paige just felt how it is to be in a bare knuckle kind of setting. So that'd be a good part too. I hope it happens. She looks still motivated after the fight, not the night of, but after the fight. She said, "I'm coming back.
Right.
I took a loss. That's okay. I've taken losses in my career, but I'm not done." And to be completely honest, she made $400,000 off that fight. That is 10 times as much more money as she was making in the UFC. Because UFC, she was making 40 to win. Dang. I mean, 40 to show and 40 to win. She's making $400,000 straight up just because of her name. So I think that's enough motivation for a girl like Paige Van Zandt. And to bring in a lot of more eyes and fans. We had Shaq sitting there cage side to watch that fight. And he said he's going to be an investor now in bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a growing sport. And it's almost becoming a bit, how should I say this, more entertainment than art, but it still has that element of art as far as fighting. but it is nice to see some of that. And it's funny because it's like saying, I'm sorry, wrestling fans, it's like saying like if WWE was real, right? Like it's like you get all the entertainment, but
it is real.
Okay. So is the Easter Bunny. But you get all that entertainment with actual fighting involved. I mean, I'm tuning in for this stuff, and like you said, you get a high profile person like Shaq investing into that. I mean, that's pretty amazing, and especially for the fact that it hasn't been around. Like it's been around for some time, but not. It's really blown up these last 2 years. I want to say.
Yeah, and had a pretty good time. That was my first bare knuckle fight that I watched a full card. And shouts to Shauna Dobson. I was texting her throughout that fight, and we're having a blast watching every single one of these entrances, the post-fight interviews, the water dropped on Britain Hart from somebody in the crowd, from one of the fighters that fights in the organization. Just like you just said, very WWE style sometimes, but it was a fun watch. And to anybody else out there watching, bare knuckle is an entertaining sport. It's a little dangerous. It's a little scary with certain things. There's a lot of eye pokes because, of course, they're not wearing gloves. Their hands are just wrapped.
Right.
But a pretty good, entertaining sports to watch, and I definitely want to watch more. But speaking of watching some big things, this weekend we got a huge fight. Woo! We've been waiting a long time for this fight since last year.
Yep.
Around what was that? July? When did Jorge Masvidal?
I want to say June, July.
June, July. That's where they originally were supposed to fight. Unfortunately, Gilbert Burns went out with the COVID virus. He caught the COVID virus traveling over there to Las Vegas. Unfortunately, him and his team had to drive back to Florida. That fight was scrapped. They rebooked it for December. Something happened to Kamaru Usman. Fight got scrapped again. We've just been waiting like it's Tony Ferguson versus Habib. But we're actually getting this fight on Saturday. Crossing fingers, of course, that nothing happens.
I was going to say easy now because it's still hump day, so there's a lot of days in between from now on.
We get this, we have this podcast, and boom, here's something crazy, and that fight's canceled, or they have to rebook it again. But hopefully not. But this is a tale of two teammates going against each other. Kamaru Usman has literally cornered Gilbert Burns in his fights. This is going to be ultra challenging for both of these guys because they know each other so well. Nick, what's your most intriguing thing about this fight coming up? Things.
Well, I think it's right, exactly. It's a lot of things, right? The fact that the teammates, the anticipation for how long we've been waiting to finally see this fight. Hopefully, we will see it this weekend, like we mentioned. Nothing comes up, and just these two dominant guys in their respective division. That it's really going to be interesting to see, who comes out here because. If you look at their records, it's kind of hard to pick between the two. I mean, I have my prediction and who I think is going to win and who I thought was going to win, whether they had fought back in July or in December or whatever. But this is definitely going to be a very interesting match.
Absolutely. And Burns and Usman. First, let's talk about Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was talked about so badly before when he made the comment about being only 30% for a fight. They called him 30% Usman. But he went from 30% Usman to, hey, I just dominated Tyron Woodley. Hey, I just knocked out Colby Covington. Hey, I just dominated Damian Maia. If you look at the guys that Kamaru Usman has beaten on his path to the title and being a champion and defending that title, because not too many guys, not named George St. Pierre or Tyron Woodley, have defended that welterweight title as many times. And he's on his route to being one of the greatest welterweights of all time, if we're being honest. Gilbert Burns went on a really good streak, very smart in taking those short notice. He used to be a lightweight, but he was taking so much damage to his body, was struggling to make that weight, always would have conditioning issues, went up to welterweight. I remember him taking a fight against Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson is a wizard on the ground, and Gilbert Burns dominated him in every area. From there, he took a couple fights, short notice again, and was beating these guys, knocking out Damian Maia, dominating Tyron Woodley. But here, I feel, and you can disagree or agree with me, that they both have different kind of competition. I don't think that Gilbert Burns has fought the kind of competition that Kamaru Usman has fought. I don't think Kamaru...
No, that's 100% correct.
Yeah, I don't think Gilbert Burns has been the barn burners of fights like Kamaru Usman has been through. And all these title challenges have been pretty hard. I know he dominated Jorge Masvidal. That was short notice. He dominated Tyron Woodley as well. My Lord. But those are no easy feats.
No, it's spot on what you're saying. Usman's definitely had the harder competition. But it's just that Gilbert Burns, when you watch this guy fight, he's so talented. And not only that, but he comes up with ways. He's very adaptive as far as the way that he approaches his fights, right? And so it doesn't matter. It seems that it doesn't matter who he comes into contact with or who he fights with. He just knows how to approach it and knows during the fight how to change his strategy and find a way to win. So I think that's sort of the advantage that that Burns has over Usman, but Usman definitely has fought bigger names. I don't really count the Masvidal win, as a domination per se, just because like we mentioned, it was a short-term notice. He did win, yes, but it wasn't a very, how should I say this, a very testy match. Like I would say, like his fight was with Kobe Covington. So we'll see, man. The time, and this is another factor that's going to come that's going to hurt both of them. I feel is the time away from fighting. A lot of these guys, I think it's been over a year since they fought, and I think that's something that's going to play a role this weekend as well.
That's right. Both of them haven't fought a long time, and these are guys who are usually used to fighting three, maybe. Well, Gilbert Burns has 4 or 5 times for sure. But Kamaru,
he's like when we were kids in Publix growing up, just taking the coupons straight out of
taking the coupons.
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman is a guy who's used to so many 5-round fights. He's been in a lot of them, a lot of main events he's been in. So he definitely has that experience. I think this weekend, the most important thing is going to be what they learn being away from each other, because they're so used to training with each other. Now they're away from each other, and what they learn in their respective camps. So where Gilbert Burns is down here at Sanford MMA, and Kamaru Usman is with Team Elevation over there with Justin Gaethje. He's got some really good sparring partners. I'm sure he's taking a good amount of damage. So it's going to be very hard for Gilbert Burns where he's going to dominate. I'm just not sure exactly where Gilbert Burns is going to dominate. I know he's good everywhere. As you can see, he improved his striking against Woodley. He's always good on the ground. Can Kamaru Usman dominate Gilbert Burns on the ground with his wrestling? Because Kamaru Usman, that's his bread and butter, right?
Right. I mean, I'm not so certain that he can. I like I said, it's just because Gilbert is such an adaptive. He's kind of like I don't know. He's like a chameleon, right? He changes his according to his environment, and I think that no matter what route they take in this match, whether they're standing or on the ground, Gilbert just finds a way to find an answer and come back from whatever position he's in.
So you know what time it is. I got to do it. Unless you have more you want to say about this fight, we got to give a prediction. You said you had one. You said you had it from last year.
Yeah, I said yeah.
The same one.
I think and I practically just said it right now, right? It's my prediction is that Gilbert Burns is going to win. That's my prediction. I think Gilbert Burns is going to win because, like I said, he's just adaptive, and not only that, but these two guys are kind of like decision specialists, right? Most of their fights, even the fight that Usman had against Kobe Covington, that nearly went to decision. I think it was. I can't remember if it was early in the 5th round or late in the 5th round that fight was ended. But nonetheless, like this is gonna have to be a fight where it can't go to decision, because if it goes to decision, it's gonna be very close. And I think that Gilbert Burns is gonna, like I said, find a way, being as adaptive as he is, to get a win before they even goes to the judges.
Kamaru Usman said something very interesting, and he said he's gonna show the JV guy while he's not on varsity. And I think he's going to do that exactly. I've had too much time of denying Kamaru Usman and saying that these guys are just going to take him out because of his style, but his style is dominant. And I cannot deny that anymore. Kamaru Usman can no longer be denied. And I think that he is going to go in there and give Gilbert Burns one of the toughest fights he's ever been in his career. I think that him training with Team Elevation is going to change so much within him, and that he can stand with Gilbert Burns for sure. I don't think Kamaru Usman will have any of those issues. He's going to be able to do whatever he wants, and he's going to control the fight from top to bottom. I think Kamaru Usman beats Gilbert Burns. It's going to be a decision, but it's going to be a decision that's going to be pretty wide. 49-46, all cards, Kamaru Usman. I'm taking the Nigerian Nightmare to win that fight.
Well, that is a good point. He's very controlling with his fights. His defense is really good, and yes, although it may not be the sexiest or the most attractive type of fighting, it gets the result. So I got to give him respect in that sense. But I just see his reign coming at an end with Gilbert Burns.
And in the co-main event on this We'll find out. We'll find out on Saturday. I can't wait to talk about this next week. It's going to be good. I feel like we're going to get a very big picture on where the welterweight division is and who's going to take on Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, anybody in that top five, because there's a lot of contenders. But in the co-main event, we also have Macy Barber taking on Alexa Grasso. That is at flyweight. That's going to be a really good fight. Macy Barber is somebody who they thought was going to be a champion or challenging Valentina Shevchenko for a title at this point. She lost to Roxanne Modafferi. She had injuries in both her knees. She tore her ACLs, MCLs, everything you can tear. She tore them. So it's going to be interesting to see how she comes back from an injury like that. Alexa Grasso is, of course, moving up in weight. She couldn't make weight anymore at 115. She looked good at 125. She's a very good boxer, good on the ground as well. So that's going to be an interesting fight as well. But I'm very interested to see Kelvin Gastelum come back finally after suffering 2 losses in a row. He lost Jack Hermanson, submission very fast in Fight Island. And of course, the fight before that, he lost to Israel Adesanya in one of the best fights I've ever seen in my career, in my life, for that interim middleweight title. He could have been a champion, but he's taken a tumble, lost a couple of fights, taken some time off, and I'm very excited to see Kevin Gastelum come back.
Yeah, me too. I think that he's pretty much a heavy favorite in this match coming up. So it could be just the type of match that he needs to get back on track, especially after those 3 losses. But I mean, you said the names: Hermanson, Adesanya, and Till. These are guys that are household names, and you shouldn't feel too distraught. Right, exactly. He shouldn't feel too. Yeah. Right, 3-fight losing streak, but against big names, so he shouldn't feel too distraught. I think that this weekend would be good for him. He has a favorable matchup. Not saying that it's going to be easy, because none of these matches are easy, but enough to perhaps like I said, get out of that funk.
Yeah, Ian Heinisch, a guy who hasn't been finished in his career. I don't think he's been finished in his career. Even if he has, he's a very hard guy to finish. This is definitely a warm-up kind of fight. As hard as it is for me to say that, because I respect all of these guys, and I respect Ian Heinisch, but if Kevin Gastelum cannot defeat the likes of somebody who's ranked as low as Ian Heinisch and hasn't fought the biggest competition yet, he's got a lot to think about. Or maybe going back to that welterweight class, which I feel is better for him if he just, there's some disciplinary things there. But he always says, I'm Mexican, man, I eat a lot. Understood. But there's a lot of guys who are Mexican and they can make these weight. Look at Brandon Moreno, who's 125 pound, and he's not having trouble making that weight. But this is going to be big for Kelvin Gastelum. He's got to win this fight. They're putting him on a UFC embedded, so they definitely are putting some kind of praise into him. So that's going to be an interesting fight to see. Nick, who do you got in this fight? Real quick pick.
I think Kevin. I think he bounces back here. I think he gets the win, and then he gets his career back on track.
I agree. I think he takes his fight. I think he finishes this fight. I think he needs a finish in this fight, because if he doesn't get this, it's going to be a rough road to whatever journey he decides to take if he does not win this one. So we'll see what happens. But we had a really good comeback interview this past Monday. Nick Diaz spoke to Ariel Helwani on his show and dropped so many gems about what he's thinking about right now, what he's up to, why he hasn't fought. Number one thing that he said: I am not going back to 155 pounds. That weight class is dead. There's nothing left for me there. If anybody wants to fight me at 170 pounds. What do you think about Nate Diaz? Do you think anybody will actually go up and fight him at 170? Is this the Nick Diaz, I do whatever I want sweepstakes right now?
I'm sorry, you cut off on that last part. What was it?
Is this the Nate Diaz, I do whatever I want, you come up to me time period right now?
I mean, in his mind, it seems like it is, right? I mean, he's a pretty big name. People are gonna tune in to watch him, so maybe so. He's not. What's funny is that I just feel that he's underrated. A lot of people tend to forget about Nate Diaz, and I think it's also the fact that he's kind of been out of it for a while. When was it that him and George fought? It was like November of
2019.
So he's been out for a very long time. So I wouldn't say that he should be in the position where he can just make those kind of demands and have people sort of, just jump at the gun when he does. But I mean, he is a big name. He's had some great victories. He's obviously a decorated fighter. And I think that, yeah, because of that, he sort of feels that entitlement that he can make those type of requests.
Nate Diaz has the second highest selling pay-per-view in UFC history. If he wants to call anybody out, he can call whoever he wants out. So I don't disagree with him because, hey, he's made the UFC a lot of money. He's gone through a long period of time to where he was still on an Ultimate Fighter contract, which is absolutely absurd. This is a guy who headlined Fox Cards against Benson Henderson for the UFC lightweight championship. And he was getting paid the Ultimate Fighter money, which is very low if you know those numbers. But I think Nate maybe has to be careful with these because Charles Oliveira is not going to fight him at 170 pounds. We'll talk about that in a second. No. But Dustin Poirier definitely will, because Poirier he just made a lot of money from the Khabib fight to the McGregor fight. He's been making a buku amount of money. Him fighting Nate Diaz, everybody's going to want to watch that. He's going to make a lot of money. So I think Poirier would go up and fight him at 170, wouldn't have to cut that much weight. And I feel that he actually wants to fight him. Nate, the guy that I want to fight. And another thing, too, that I want to point out, Nate Diaz doesn't call out guys who've lost their previous fight. He didn't call out Conor McGregor. He didn't call out Tony Ferguson. He called out Dustin Poirier, who just won his fight, Charles Oliveira, who just won his fight. He's calling out these guys who just won their fights. He usually calls out winners. So that's interesting to see. But, Nick, if you're Charles Oliveira, Nate Diaz is calling you out. Are you fighting him at 170 pounds, or are you still waiting for that lightweight title?
I mean, Charles Oliveira is not even thinking about a lot of people in his own division. So I think much less somebody that he has to actually go up a division for. I think he continues to wait, especially the fact that I think he feels that he's somewhat in the driver's seat with all the attention that's revolving around him. And I think that he's very hesitant to go out there and risk the opportunity of the title fight and losing against somebody. And even if it's not even the same weight division, because a loss, it stays sometimes, it stays for a long time in people's memory. So I don't think he's going to risk it. Dustin Poirier, though, I definitely agree that he would definitely take that fight because, one, the money's there, the viewership is there. It's only going to build his brand to a bigger, bigger than it already is. So I could see Dustin doing it, but Charles Oliveira, no. I think Charles Oliveira is going to stick around.
If I'm Charles Oliveira, I am taking that fight. Are you serious? If you feel that you are that much better than all your competition, why not make a little bit of money? Not a little bit of money. You're going to make millions off that fight because it's for sure going to be – everybody's going to watch it. It's a Nate Diaz fight. And Charles Oliveira has this issue to where people don't really want to see him fight that much, especially like the casuals. I don't mean everybody, but like they don't want to see him fight because they don't know his name. They don't know who he is. I know he just beat Tony Ferguson. I know he's had a couple pretty good wins over Kevin Lee as well, but he still doesn't have that name. And the UFC is a business at the end of the day. Make a name for yourself. Make some money. You beat Nate Diaz, you still go get a lightweight title fight, and you're going to get more money for that lightweight title fight because your name is going to grow from there. So if I'm Charles Oliveira, I'm doing it. Another question I have.
If he loses,
go ahead.
Do you think if he loses, though, kind of like we discussed before, if he loses against Nate Diaz, does he use some of that glitter? You know, does he lose that? Like I said, it's a completely different weight division, so it shouldn't reflect him in his own division. But like you said, UFC is a business. They want to keep people who are relevant, people who are known by the fans, right? And Charles Oliveira, like you said, he's not known by a lot of casual guys, right? Nor does he really bring interest from a lot of people, even though I think he should. So I think that's the reason why, in a way, I mean, and I don't want to like portray it as this. Maybe people think that he's being a coward or chicken or whatever, not taking these opportunities. But there's a lot on the line for him. So I can understand why he would be hesitant to do any of these fights.
Yeah, I definitely get it, but you have to do what's best for business in his standpoint, and I think that's best for business. And he's declined a couple times to the UFC for some different fights. It'll look better on him. He take a big fight like this against Nate Diaz. But one interesting thing that I realized in that Nate Diaz interview as well is him not really wanting to fight Conor McGregor again. You think that was because Conor McGregor is coming off a loss, or he feels that's too easy of a fight for him, or he's kind of drawing McGregor and saying he doesn't really want to fight him?
I feel like it's just kind of one of those things where it's like been there, done that. Especially the fact that a lot of people, I'm sure even himself, felt that he beat him twice, you know? So like it's like why am I gonna go there again into that territory? And then and I don't think Nate Diaz is necessarily scared of anybody. I think it has more to do with, there's a reason why Nate Diaz's last fight was for the BMF title, right? Because that's what he is. He's one of the toughest guys. He doesn't shy away from difficult fights. And like you said, he always calls out winners, not losers. So it could be the fact that like when Connor just lost, obviously he's not looking like himself. Like Connor, I think it'd be sort of naive to have this type of mentality, but maybe he thinks that like, Connor's done. This is a whole new other Connor. This isn't Mystic Mac. This isn't the guy that was always beating on his chest and stuff. I don't want to be fighting against some now this Monk McGregor, right? This humble guy that's with his feet on the ground and his head out of the clouds, or his head no longer in the clouds. So why would he want to fight that? He wants to fight against a guy like we said, like Dustin Poirier, who's really feeling himself, right? Who's really gonna try to get an entertaining fight. And I just don't feel that Conor McGregor, with not just the loss, but with his new sort of attitude, is, even though yes, people will tune in for that, but maybe he's just not down with his whole new attitude.
Yeah, he was talking about that. He's like, oh, he just wants to play this new Mr. Nice Guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel that Nate Diaz is doing all this just to lure Conor McGregor back in. As you can see, McGregor left comments under Ariel Helwani's post and said, ooh, vroom, vroom, race car driver with your chair. Oh, my God. This now, maybe that everybody wants to see. As much as I say McGregor doesn't have to talk because he's made a bunch of money, doesn't have to sell anymore. When it comes to Nate Diaz, you'll get that old McGregor back 100% because they naturally just dislike each other.
Well, they need to. There's an animosity there that's like that we hardly ever see before, right? And it's good because even like I said, the BMF fight, right, between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. I mean, these are guys that don't have a lot of love for everybody in the game, but they do respect each other, and there wasn't an animosity there. So like it was kind of entertaining, but it wasn't. It's entertaining because you got two, like they say, bad motherfuckers going against each other. But you also, at the same time, it's like, all right, they don't really like each other. I mean, it's not like they hate each other. So, like, how entertaining could this fight be? You always had that with a McGregor-Nate Diaz fight, right? Just the complete animosity towards each other, maybe with the exception of after the fight and everything. But maybe that's what, as a matter of fact, before a rematch with Dustin Poirier, maybe that's what McGregor needs to get back into his groove, right? He needs sort of this enticing, challenging fight that, okay, whatever, I move up a weight and we go for a trilogy. We both make boatload of money, right? And I feel like also with the amount of money that McGregor has, he's gonna need to have these high paying or these high pay-per-view, high viewing fights, because let's just be real. Like, he doesn't really need to fight anymore. He's got so much money that he doesn't even have to be doing this. I don't even like, he does it, I suppose, because his heart is still into fighting and everything, but financially, he doesn't have to be here.
He doesn't, correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But if I'm Conor McGregor, I'm fighting Poirier for that third time, I'm definitely motivated to fight him because I just lost to him. But at some point down the road, and they always talk about it, he wants that Nate Diaz fight 3. Nate Diaz will take it, as much as he said he doesn't want it right now. He knows how much money he's made off that fight, and he knows how much money he can make off a trilogy fight with that. So there's no way he wouldn't take it. 170 would be interesting because McGregor is trying to, get back into the 155-pound frame. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing. But if I'm McGregor, I'm taking that Poirier fight part 3 and then seeing what happens from there. But we had some breaking news yesterday. Bellator put on a conference to announce their light heavyweight Grand Prix. Woo! That is, I was so excited to see what they were going to do with the likes of Yoel Romero, Anthony Johnson, Corey Anderson, a lot of their big name fighters, and they announced their card. On the right-hand side, we have champion Vadim Nemkov taking on Phil Davis. That is a rematch. Vadim Nemkov has defeated Phil Davis in the past via split decision. Anthony Johnson is taking on Yoel Romero in the first round. My Lord, what a banger of a fight to give in the first round. Wow, we were not expecting that. We thought they would set him up to somehow meet in a second round, but nope. They gave it to us up front. Left side, we got Ryan Bader taking on Lyoto Machida. That is another rematch from the UFC days. Ryan Bader was knocked out by Lyoto Machida in the first or second round on a main event of a UFC on Fox card. And then, of course, newcomer Corey Anderson is taking on another newcomer in the Bellator light heavyweight division. I don't know him too well, not going to lie, but I guess we'll find out about him when this competition comes up. A risky fight for Corey Anderson to take because this guy is not super well known. But, Nick, what fight are you most excited for on this card? And I probably can guess it.
Is it all of the above? Is that an option? All of the above? Because, I mean, they you know, what's funny is that they pinpoint this right. I was surprised that they put the newcomers in Anthony Rumble Johnson and Yoel Romero together in the first round. You would think that they would want to perhaps like, all right, let's separate these guys so that perhaps they meet in the final. But no, man, I'm all for that. Yeah, like start off with a bang. Don't wait or anything. Just go ahead. And I think that these matchups are perfectly put together, and it's going to be really, really entertaining. And I wish that UFC would do something more like this. We know that it probably would never happen with them, but I'm glad that Bellator is taking the step and doing this because they have that's the best light heavyweight division in the world right now.
I agree. And usually the UFC has the better divisions, but with these kind of caliber fighters, that is the best light heavyweight. Not this time. That is the best light heavyweight division right now. I think a lot of these guys can defeat a lot of guys in the UFC light heavyweight division. Of course, I'm excited for the Yoel Romero, Anthony Johnson, because I don't know what's going to happen there. Like literally two powerful guys. I know Yoel is coming from 185, but we know he's a huge guy. He's going to be big at that weight, stronger, still going to be fast. Anthony Johnson, we hadn't seen in a couple, 2 or 3 years. He retired. Now he's back, motivated, looking good, looking very in shape. Sometimes these guys need breaks. Ryan Bader, Lyoto Machida, we're going to see a rematch we've been waiting for from 2012. Two different fighters. Ryan Bader is now the heavyweight champion. He was a light heavyweight champion in Bellator, so he has so much to prove. Lyoto wants to show that he's still a force to be reckoned with in the light heavyweight division. Corey Anderson came over to Bellator to maybe have a little bit of an easier path to a championship, but all these guys came out of nowhere and are just
plan went out the window real quick.
Went out the window. And then, of course, we got Phil Davis, who's on, I said it yesterday, the Phil Davis revenge tour because he's lost to about 4 of these guys on this card. So, of course, he wants to get those wins back. Nemkov wants to establish himself in the Bellator light heavyweight division as the champion and try to glide his way to the end. It's going to be very interesting. Bellator is now on Showtime, which is huge for them. Bigger stage. Scott Coker originally had a relationship with Showtime when he had Strikeforce on there, and they used to get really good viewers. So good on Bellator for putting together something like this. You said this the other day. The UFC, they should put on some kind of a competition or like Grand Prix tournament style like this. Do you think they'll ever do it, or they'll leave that to Bellator to kind of have those Grand Prix kind of competitions?
I think this is something that we're only really going to see outside of UFC. I don't think that UFC is really interested in this kind of thing because they sort of like to sprinkle out their fighters from different divisions on different cards so that more people tune in. So I think it could be beneficial in the sense like what Bellator is doing because you know that everybody's going to tune in for that. But I also understand why UFC does what they do because, like I said, is that okay, I have a card here with not that many people that are that popular, that interesting for the casual fan and below. So let me sprinkle a little bit of lightweight here. Let me sprinkle a little bit of welterweight. Let me sprinkle a little bit of bantamweight or whatnot. So that people actually tune in. So because of that, I don't see it ever happening really with UFC as much as I'd like to. Especially like I said, some of those 3 divisions right now: bantamweight, lightweight, and welterweight are really stacked. So it'd be really cool to see, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, UFC will never go by any kind of Bellator standard. Dana White's got too much of an ego for that.
That's another thing too. It's like, are they really gonna, imitation is the best compliment. Do they really want to compliment their biggest competitor? I don't think so, especially with somebody as prideful as Dana White.
Agreed, 100% agreed. So Bellator, good luck on the competition. We will be watching that. It starts April 9th on Showtime. You can get a free month, 30 days free off the bat. You guys should definitely check that out. It's going to be an amazing competition. April, July, and October all take place. Can't wait to watch that. But guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you for always coming by, We got great cards on Saturday. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It is below. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Watch that card on Saturday. It's going to be amazing. We'll be back next week, of course. I will be on Instagram Live in about 2 hours. I got Tyrone Woodley, the chosen one, on there. We'll be talking to him to see what he's been up to. So that's going to be a fun one. Catch you guys on there. We'll be back next week. Nick, got anything to say to the people?
Yeah, how about Tom Brady?
How about Tom Brady? Congrats to the GOAT.
Oh, he's
7 rings, baby.
It was Belichick. It was the Patriots.
Hey, but Tom Brady, you're still not better than Bret Hart, man. I'm not going to go there. That's a funny. Anyways, I'll post that later. We'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you later. Mr. Car out live. DP, Darnell, Nick Marcus. We're out. Peace. Ooh.